Don't listen to this alone in the dark. I was only trying to take the trash out before bed. That was all it was. It was late, past midnight, and the building had gone quiet the way it always does after the last elevator stops opening and closing. I remember standing in my apartment kitchen with the trash bag twisted tight in my hand, listening to the refrigerator hum and the pipes tick in the wall, and thinking I should just leave it until morning. I almost did. I had my shoes off. I was tired. But the bag smelled bad, and I kept telling myself it would take less than 2 minutes to walk it down the hall to the chute and come back. I unlocked the door, stepped into the hallway in my socks, and pulled the door shut behind me. The hallway lights were on, the same weak yellow lights they always use on my floor, and the carpet had that old damp smell it gets when they shampoo it and never really dry it. Everything looked normal. I could hear the vending machine buzzing down near the stairwell, and somewhere below me, a door shut soft and heavy. I started walking toward the chute with the trash bag brushing against my leg, and I remember saying to myself, 2 minutes, then I'm done. The chute was near the far end of the hall beside the utility closet, just before the turn that led to the stairwell door. I opened the chute, shoved the bag in, and listened for it to drop. That sound always echoes all the way down the pipe, but that night it didn't. It went in, then it stopped, like something had caught it halfway down. I stood there with my hand still on the metal flap, waiting for the rest of the sound, and I didn't hear it. I only heard the lights overhead and my own breathing. I leaned closer to the opening before I could stop myself, and looked into the black space of the chute. I couldn't see anything, but I could smell the garbage from the lower floors, that wet, sour smell that pushes hot air back into your face. Then I heard something move inside it. Not falling, not sliding. It sounded slow, like something dragging upward against the metal. I jerked back so hard the flap slammed shut, and I remember staring at it and telling myself it was the bag tearing open or catching on a bolt. That was the only thing that made sense. I said it out loud because I needed to hear it. It's stuck, that's all. It's stuck. I turned to go back to my apartment, and that's when I noticed the hallway had changed in a way I can still feel in my stomach when I think about it. It wasn't the lights. It wasn't the carpet. It was the silence. The vending machine near the stairwell had stopped buzzing. I didn't hear the pipes anymore. I didn't hear anyone's television through the walls. I didn't hear the elevator cables or the little click the building makes when the heat kicks on. It was like the floor had emptied out while my back was turned, like the whole building had leaned away and left me standing there by myself. I started walking faster. My apartment was down the hall behind me, not far, maybe 15 doors, and I could already see my door at the other end. I could see the number. I had my hand in my pocket, feeling for my key, when I heard the metal flap of the trash chute open behind me. It didn't bang. It didn't snap. It opened slowly. I heard the hinges complain a little, then stop. I didn't turn around right away. I froze with my shoulders up and my hand around my keys, and I listened to something wet touch the carpet. I looked back over my shoulder, and at first I thought a person was crouched there in the dark near the chute. It was the right size for that. It was low to the ground and folded in on itself, with long arms planted on the carpet and its head hanging down so far its face was hidden. But it wasn't a person. The skin looked wrong right away. It wasn't skin like ours. It looked stretched tight and slick at the same time, gray in some places, black in others where the light couldn't settle on it. Its back moved in little pulls, like it was breathing through its whole body instead of through a chest. One arm was too long. I could tell that before it lifted its head. The fingers were spread wide on the carpet, and there were too many joints in them, bending in places they shouldn't. Then it raised its face and looked straight at me. I saw both eyes at once. They were too pale, almost white, and too open, like they didn't need to blink. Its mouth wasn't hanging open or baring teeth the way people imagine. It was closed. That made it worse. It looked like it was paying attention. It looked calm. It looked like it had climbed up through the chute and stopped there because it knew I was still in the hall. I heard myself say, "No." The thing stood up without taking its eyes off me. It unfolded in pieces, first the shoulders, then the back, then the neck, and by the time it was fully upright, its head nearly brushed the ceiling. That hallway wasn't built for something that tall. It had to lean a little to fit there, and its arms hung almost to its knees. One of its hands trailed along the wall as it straightened, and I heard the drywall texture scrape under its fingers. I backed away from it, not fast at first because I still had that stupid part of my mind telling me not to run in case it made it worse. Like this was a dog, like this was something with rules I understood. Then it took one step toward me, just one, slow, careful, like it didn't need to hurry. That was enough. I turned and ran from my apartment with my socks slipping on the carpet, keys jamming between my fingers, and I could hear it behind me moving in the same slow pace, not chasing, just walking after me. I reached my door, dropped the keys, cursed, bent down, and grabbed them with shaking hands. I could feel it getting closer without hearing it breathe. I shoved the key into the lock and missed. I tried again and got it in, turned it, grabbed the handle, and found the door already locked from the inside. I don't mean jammed. I don't mean the bolt caught. I mean the knob wouldn't turn even though I had just unlocked it. I twisted it hard enough to hurt my wrist, and it wouldn't move. I hit the door with my shoulder and yelled, "Open!" I don't know why I said that. There was nobody inside. But I said it again, louder. "Open! Open!" When I looked back, it was halfway down the hall now, still coming toward me with that bent neck and those pale eyes on my face. It didn't look rushed. It looked certain. I backed away from my own door and started moving toward the stairwell because I had nowhere else to go. Every door I passed stayed shut. I thought about pounding on one of them, screaming for help, but something inside me already knew no one was going to answer. The hall felt dead. The lights seemed dimmer near the stairwell, and the thing behind me kept coming with one hand sliding across the wall as if it liked touching the building. I hit the stairwell door so hard it slammed inward, and I stumbled onto the concrete landing. The heavy door tried to swing shut behind me, but before it closed, I saw the thing stop in the doorway of the hall. It didn't enter right away. It stood there, watching me through the narrowing gap. Then the door shut with a hard metal sound and left me in the stairwell alone. I ran up instead of down because I was on the 6th floor, and my brain decided the roof meant open air, people, a way out, something. The stairwell smelled like dust and old mop water. My socks slapped the concrete, and each step sent a pain up through my legs because I was taking them 2 at a time. I grabbed the rail and hauled myself up to the 7th floor landing, then the 8th. On the door to 8, I saw the push bar move inward a little from the other side. Not opening, just pressing, then stopping. I backed away from it and kept climbing. On the door to 9, the same thing happened. A soft pressure on the metal from the other side, then stillness. It was ahead of me now, without passing me. That was the moment I understood I wasn't dealing with something moving through the building the way I was. It was choosing where to be. I made it to the roof access at the top and hit the bar with both hands. The alarm didn't sound. Nothing sounded. The door opened onto the roof, and cold air hit my face so hard it made my eyes water. I stepped out into the dark and ran a few feet before stopping dead. The roof wasn't empty. It was there already, standing near the edge with its back to me, looking out over the street 12 floors below. The city lights touched the side of its body and showed me more of it than I had seen in the hall. Its shoulders were narrow, too narrow for its height. The spine pushed against the skin in a line of hard knots. Its head was tilted, as if it were listening to traffic far below. But I couldn't hear any traffic. I couldn't hear wind either, even though I could feel the cold. I backed toward the roof door in a panic and almost got it open. But when I pulled it, the handle came down in my hand without moving the latch. The door stayed shut. I turned back, and the thing at the edge was facing me now. I had not seen it turn. I heard my own voice break when I said, "What do you want from me?" It started walking toward me across the roof. No hurry, no wasted motion. The feet were bare, long and dark at the ends, like they had been burned. I kept backing up until my shoulders hit the locked roof door, and when it got close enough I could smell it. Not rot, not exactly. It smelled like wet concrete after a flood, like a room sealed too long, like standing water under a building. Its face was nearly level with mine now, because it bent down to study me. The eyes were clouded white, but I knew it could see. I knew it because the pupils didn't matter. The attention in that face was so direct, it felt physical. I tried to slide past it, and one of its hands rose and touched the metal door beside my head with a single finger. The sound that made was small, almost polite, but the whole door shuddered under it. Then it lowered its mouth toward my ear and spoke for the first time. "Back." I ran without thinking. I sprinted across the roof to the opposite side where the maintenance access box sat against the wall. A squat metal room with supplies and electrical panels inside. The door was usually chained, but that night it stood open a few inches. I threw myself into it and yanked it shut behind me. It latched. I leaned against it in the dark, gasping, and for a second I thought maybe that was enough. Maybe I had finally put one door between me and it. The room smelled like paint thinner and rust. I felt around for a light switch and found one. A single bulb came on over my head, weak and yellow, showing shelves of cleaning supplies, a mop bucket, an old folding chair, and a breaker panel on the wall. There was no other exit. The room was barely bigger than a closet. I stood there staring at the door, hearing nothing from outside it, and tried to force myself to think. I still had my phone in my pocket. My hands were so numb I almost dropped it. The screen lit up. No signal. Battery at 11%. I opened emergency call anyway. It tried and failed. I tried again. Failed. I whispered, "Please." The metal door shivered once under a touch from outside. Not a slam, not a hit, just a single press. Then another. Each one came a little lower, as if a hand were exploring the surface, learning the shape of it. I backed away until my legs hit the shelves. Bottles rattled. I couldn't stop staring at the door handle. After a long few seconds, I heard the thing outside drag one nail slowly down the metal from top to bottom. The sound was thin and sharp and steady. It stopped near the floor. Then I heard its voice again, right on the other side of the door, level and rough like air pushed through something wet. "Open." I covered my mouth with one hand so it wouldn't hear me breathe, but it already knew exactly where I was. I knew that. I knew it the way you know when someone is looking at you through a window even before you check. The handle went down slowly, held there, then released. It did it again. Then the bulb above me dimmed and brightened and dimmed again. and the breaker panel on the wall clicked by itself. I moved to the panel because I didn't know what else to do. Maybe I thought I could kill the light and hide, which made no sense in a room that small. I opened the metal cover, and every switch inside was already down. The room should have been dark, but the bulb above me was still burning, weak and yellow. I remember staring at the switches and feeling the skin on my arms tighten, because it meant the electricity in that room was not the building's electricity anymore. Something knocked once on the door, 3 slow taps in a row. Then the thing spoke again, softer this time, close enough that I could hear the wet pull in its throat. "You saw me." My legs nearly gave out. I pressed my back against the breaker panel and said the dumbest thing I have ever said in my life because I had no control over my mouth anymore. "I'm sorry." It went quiet after that. Quiet long enough for me to start hoping it had left. The bulb stopped flickering. The handle stopped moving. Even the pressure against the door was gone. I waited there with my phone in my hand, screen dark now to save what battery I had left, counting my breaths and listening so hard it made my ears ache. After a minute, maybe 2, I heard something above me. It was on the roof of the maintenance room. A soft shifting of weight. Then another. Then the slow drag of limbs crossing metal. It was crawling over me. I looked up even though I knew I wouldn't see through the ceiling. Dust shook loose with each movement. The metal groaned under its weight in small, careful sounds. It wasn't trying to break in. It was moving around up there like it was deciding where I would be easiest to reach. I stepped away from the center of the room and crouched beside the shelves. The bulb hummed overhead. Then I heard fingers on the vent cover near the top of the back wall. There was a square vent high up above the shelves, painted over so many times I never would have noticed it if I hadn't looked up. The screws turned by themselves, one after another, each with a tiny scraping twist. I watched the vent cover ease outward at the top. My body locked. I couldn't even raise my hands. The cover tipped and fell, hitting the floor beside me with a clang that made me flinch so hard my teeth cracked together. Behind the vent was a black opening, no wider than a microwave, but inside it I saw movement right away. Pale eyes first, then fingers gripping the edges from within. It was looking down at me from a space that could not have held its body, and that made the fear change. Up until then, I had been trying to understand what it could do. Once I saw it there, I stopped trying. It pulled itself forward, inch by inch with slow control, shoulders compressing, bones pressing under the skin in shapes I still can't forget. The head bent sideways to fit. The mouth opened a little now, and the inside was dark and wet. I stumbled backward into the door and screamed, "Stay back!" It answered me this time, like it had been waiting for that. No. One arm came out of the vent and reached toward the floor, joints folding the wrong way as it lowered itself down the wall. Its fingers touched the shelf beside me, and every bottle on it tipped over at once. Cleaner ran across the concrete and soaked into my socks. I grabbed the folding chair and swung it with both hands. The metal frame hit its arm with a loud crack, but the arm barely moved. It only turned its face toward the chair, then back to me, like it had noticed a fly. I threw the chair anyway and shoved at the door behind me again, and this time the latch gave. I fell backward out onto the roof, hit hard on one shoulder, and rolled. Cold air hit my face. The roof door to the stairwell was open now, standing wide as if someone had invited me through. I ran for it because there was nowhere else to go. Behind me, I heard the maintenance room roof buckle inward with a sound like a car hood being crushed. I hit the stairwell again and started going down so fast I was half falling, one hand sliding on the rail, the other slamming off the concrete wall to keep my balance. I made it to the 10th floor landing and through the hall door without even checking first. The 10th floor corridor looked like mine, but darker, longer somehow, with more burned-out bulbs. Half the doors had flyers tucked into the frames. The carpet was stained in black paths near the baseboards. I ran anyway, because the elevator sat at the far end with its doors open, bright inside, waiting. I could see the lit buttons. I could hear the soft motor hum. That sight felt so normal, it hurt. I ran toward it with tears in my eyes, and when I was halfway there, I saw that the elevator floor was wet. Not shiny, wet. A dark puddle spread from the back corner toward the hall. I stopped. In the reflective metal wall at the back of the elevator, I saw something tall standing behind me in the corridor. I did not turn around. I didn't need to. I could see it clearly in the reflection, bent at the neck, wide eyes fixed on me, one hand lifted slightly as if it were ready to touch my shoulder. I whispered, "Please don't." Its hand lowered in the reflection. Then it pointed, not at me, but at the open apartment door to my left. I hadn't noticed it before. Unit 1008 stood open a few inches, with warm light inside. I don't know why I obeyed. Maybe because it hadn't rushed me once the whole night, and that made it feel like every choice I was making had already been arranged. I turned my head just enough to see the apartment door for real. When I looked back at the elevator reflection, the corridor behind me was empty. I should have kept running, I know that. But I was shaking so hard I could barely stand, and that open doorway looked like the only place not exposed. I went to it and pushed inside. It was a one-bedroom unit laid out exactly like mine, but mirrored. Lamp on in the living room, kitchen light off, television off. No people, no sound. The air inside felt warm and stale, like the place had been closed up. I shut the door behind me and locked it. The lock worked. That almost made me cry. I backed into the living room, listening. Then I saw the family photos on the wall. Not a family, just the same face in every frame. Mine. Me standing outside the building. Me carrying groceries. Me in the laundromat downstairs looking at my phone. Me asleep on my couch with the television on. Some were taken through my apartment window. Some were taken from the hallway when my door was open. One was from inside my bedroom. My knees gave out and I sat down hard on the floor. I heard the bathroom door at the end of the hall click open. It came out on all fours first, moving slowly over the tile, then rose in the doorway under the yellow bathroom light. It had never left me. That was when I understood the apartment on 10 wasn't empty and safe. It was where it had been keeping me. Not my body, maybe, not until then, but my routine, my habits, my face, the times I slept and the times I stepped into the hall with my trash in my hand. It had known me long before I knew it. It took one step into the living room. I backed away across the carpet until my shoulders hit the couch. My throat hurt from breathing too fast. I said, "Why me?" It came closer and lowered itself until its face was inches from mine. Up close, I could see the skin around its mouth twitching in tiny movements, as if it were trying out expressions it had seen but didn't understand. One hand touched the floor by my leg. The fingers flexed against the carpet. The eyes stayed on mine. When it spoke this time, the voice came out lower and clearer, almost like mine after not sleeping for days. "You opened." I thought about the trash chute. I thought about leaning in to look. I thought about all the nights I'd stood in halls and stairwells and laundry rooms in this building, without ever asking what else might be sharing them with me. It wasn't saying I had opened a door. It was saying I had noticed. I had looked where it was, and now it wasn't going to let that go. It raised one hand and pressed two fingers lightly against my throat, not choking, just feeling the pulse there. Then it turned its head toward the apartment door, as if listening to something outside. I listened too. For the first time all night, I heard the building again. Distant pipes, an elevator moving, a television behind a wall. Normal sounds. The world had come back, but it was too late. I don't remember standing up. I only remember being walked. That is the part that still makes me sick, because it never dragged me and it never forced me to the floor. It just stood beside me with one hand resting between my shoulder blades, and I walked where it guided me. Out of the apartment, down the 10th floor hall, back into the stairwell, down the steps one flight at a time. Whenever I slowed, its fingers pressed a little harder, and I kept moving. I tried to scream once. Its nails touched the back of my neck, and every word died in my throat like something had clamped shut inside me. We went down past my floor, past the lobby level, into the basement where tenants aren't supposed to go unless management opens it. The air changed there. Colder, wet. The concrete walls sweated. There were old maintenance rooms, storage cages, boiler pipes wrapped in peeling insulation. The lights were farther apart, leaving long sections of shadow between them. It guided me down the last short corridor to a door I had never seen open. Painted gray, no label. It opened before we reached it. Inside was a bare bathroom with one working sink, one cracked mirror, and no stall doors. I saw myself in the mirror for a second, white-faced, eyes wide, hair stuck to my forehead with sweat, and behind me the thing stood almost touching the ceiling, patient as ever. It made me face the mirror. I stood there with both hands on the sink, shaking so hard the faucet rattled. It stood behind me and watched my face in the glass, not its own reflection, mine, like it was studying what fear looked like after enough time had passed. Then it put one hand on the side of my head and turned my face a little toward the cracked open vent above the mirror. I could hear movement in it. Not another body, not another creature, just a sound like breath traveling through ducts and stopping at every opening in the building. I realized then that it had a path to every floor, every hallway, every bathroom and maintenance room. It didn't need to chase anyone. It only needed to wait until somebody noticed, until somebody listened too closely, looked too long, leaned toward the dark opening instead of away from it. My phone was still in my pocket. I slipped it out while its hand stayed on my head. I don't know why it let me. Maybe because it knew there was no one to save me. Maybe because it wanted this part. I started recording with my thumb and held the phone low against the sink so you could hear me. So maybe someone would understand before they did the same thing I did. It is still behind me now while I say this. I can feel where its fingers are resting against the back of my neck. Every time I stop talking for too long, they tighten a little. I can hear the air moving in the vent over the mirror, and I know it is carrying this same breath through the walls above me, up past the storage rooms and the pipes and the stairwell landings, up to the floors where people are sleeping with their doors locked, thinking walls mean something. I know what it does now. It waits in places built to be ignored. It listens for someone alone. It listens for someone close enough to hear the wrong sound and curious enough to look. I keep thinking about that trash chute opening behind me and how small that moment was, and how easy it would have been to walk away without turning around. But I did turn around. I saw it. And once it knows you can see it, It never lets you go. If you're listening to this, then you're hearing me from somewhere it already knows how to reach. And if your building has vents, hallways, stairwells, or a dark opening you've never looked into before, I need you to understand that it may already be listening from the other side. If you have a horror story of your own, please feel free to drop it in the comment section. You never know, the next story could be yours. Subscribe to the Vault so you don't miss what comes next.